And we're back with another episode of the Lakers Fast Break Podcast. It's Gerald Glassford. Thanks so much again for joining us. Truly appreciate you catching all of our NBA team previews. And it's time to go to the Valley of the Sun to go ahead and talk about the team that makes its location in the Valley of the Sun. It is the Phoenix Suns. And I want to just go ahead and make sure you know that we are going ahead with a great discussion on the Phoenix Suns. And here today to talk about the Phoenix Suns is someone who has the inside knowledge on what's going on. He studies this team on a regular basis. He writes about this team on a regular basis. Arizona, tried and true. If you look at his bio that's out there, that's available for you on Clutch Points, where he writes. Just a great man indeed. You got to go ahead and check out what he's doing today. Again, like I said, at Clutch Points, right there for you. It is Hayden Cilley. Hayden, great to have you on the program.
Appreciate it, Gerald. I'm excited. I know you're going through every single team alphabetically, so I'm excited to be a part of the puzzle. And yeah, I'm excited to share what's been in store for the Suns throughout these last few months of the offseason.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, to hearing your thoughts. And then also, as well, near the end, I do ask for your comments on the Lakers, what you see them as going into the season, because it helps formulate my thoughts to my audience in regards to what I think about the Lakers, because getting outside perspectives from outside the Lakers bubble, as I call it, is always good, because sometimes it's a clearer vision or clearer thoughts on what people should evaluate and think of the Lakers as well. So that's always good as well. But Phoenix is a team in recent years that with the new owner, well, he's not new anymore, but with the owner, Matt Ishbia coming in, shaking things up. I will give him credit for that. He came in and he definitely shook things up. Now, did he shake things up too much? I'll leave that for your interpretation. But I guess after a couple years of trying to go all in, going beyond the second tax threshold, paying the taxes, paying the fines, paying all the extra charges, and not getting the kind of return on investment that he would have liked, he's decided to go in a little bit different direction, trading Kevin Durant, bringing in new players from Houston, from Charlotte, through the draft. Tell me what the mood is like there in Arizona right now with Phoenix, and tell me what the mood is like as far as possibly competing in what is now becoming a even tougher Western Conference.
Yeah, great question, Gerald. I think for fans, it's a mixed bag of reactions. There's definitely more optimism in terms of the I call it the youth movement. You have a lot of young players in there. Jalen Green, Kaman Malawach, Kobe Bryant, Rasheer Fleming. The guys they got through the draft. But they did their due diligence, and they also in that Houston trade where they sent Kevin Durant to Houston. Obviously they get back Jalen Green, but they get somebody back like Dylan Brooks, who, and I could talk about this a little bit later, but can really be an X factor for them. He's somebody that teammates have said you want him on your team, you hate to play against him. He had a career year in Houston last year. He can shoot the three ball really well. He's a great defender. He can play on guards. He can play on some bigger forwards, and he's just kind of an irritant. And I think the thing that the Suns have lost, even with that big three, was an identity. I don't think people really knew who they were, to be honest. I think this time, you're going to have a team that is obviously youthful. They're energetic. You have a lot of great athletes on this team. Jalen Green being the number one example. Malawach, I think, a lot of raw talent there. And then also, someone like Mark Williams, even though he's been, injury prone the last few years, or really ever since he's come into the league, the super athletic center, can get rebounds, block shots when needed, when need be. And I think they're just going to get after it. That's really what I see. They don't have the star power that they obviously once had, but I think that with the players they got, I mean, these kids just look like they want to have fun. Like they just want to go out and compete every single possession. The beauty of Jordan Ott's offense is that it's very fast paced, as everybody knows. With the Cleveland Cavs last season, had one of the best offenses in NBA history, and so I think fans are a bit sort of iffy. Like they're 50-50 in terms of their reactions because they haven't seen it. They don't know what they're gonna get. Um, but I think for us, for us as beat writers that have been on the ground, we just have a good idea that this team, from an identity standpoint, is actually going to have one, and they're just going to be competitive. I said it time and time again. I don't think a team should go 36-46 like the Suns went last season with that amount of talent, and they just look so flat. I don't really think that's going to be the case this year. So that would be my number one thing to say to fans. The record obviously probably won't reflect, what it has been in the past, but I think in a retooling year where, everybody's together for the first time, Booker's sort of that number one again, like this is his team again. I think they're willing to wait. I think they're willing to be patient with it. But yeah, I mean, I think fans are a bit concerned because they haven't seen anything. But I think for some of us that have done some of the inside reporting, that have gone to media availabilities, some of us that went to Vegas, I wasn't a part of that, but some of my other colleagues did for summer league, and I think our general consensus is that this team will be competitive. How they'll perform, that kind of remains to be a mystery.
Once again, I'm on with Hayden Cilley. Please go ahead and check out the great work he's doing today at Clutch Points. So I ask you this, Hayden. We'll start with Booker because I think that's the first place that I think a lot of people want to go to. They broke up the big three. Now they have the big one, in essence, in Devin Booker. They committed to him long term with a very expensive on the tail end 2-year extension on top of what he's making right now, which is right around the 50s. But then it gets into the 60s, and in his age 33 year, it gets into the $69 million a year contract. I'm just saying right now, for a guy that's going to be 29 at this point, his time is now. So maximizing him now is probably something that a lot of teams would normally try to do. But it seems like you said, retooling is the way to go. I know Booker, when you sign that kind of deal, when you sign the extension deal and all that, you're committing to him long term here in Phoenix. But is that the right move for both the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker himself? I mean, when will the retooling be available to him? Will he be the same player on the other end when this retooling is done and the team is really set to compete at a high bar?
That's a great question. I think someone like Devin Booker, he definitely can, because he doesn't rely on athleticism. He's a good athlete, but he's not going to jump out of the gym. He's not going to have a 42-inch vertical and dunk on everybody that comes in his path.
Mhm.
Booker is he's very crafty with the way that he scores, whether if it's off a pick and roll. One of, I think, the most underrated parts of his game is him in the low post and
Mhm.
manipulating defenders and using, fadeaways and rip through moves. And he's a very cerebral player. And someone like him can average 25 to 27 points a game in this NBA for a very long time. We've seen lots of players before that have been very crafty and that have had very, long and fruitful careers. And I think Booker's on that list as well. But do I think that it might be? I think it's a lot of money personally. I understand signing him and giving him that extension and making him feel valued in Phoenix. But at the same time, as you said, how much, like, what's the window, right?
Mhm.
And like is this gonna make them want to go out and get another star? Are they dependent on Jalen Green becoming and transforming into that superstar in the next 2 years?
Mhm.
Is this going to be a 1A and 1B scenario? kind of like what we saw with Chris Paul and Devin Booker when the two were in Phoenix together for that finals run. And these are some questions that I don't really know if the front office knows the answer to. I think they're kind of taking a gamble, and I respect them for doing so. I mean, I think everybody knows how talented Jalen Green is. And I do think he would have been great in Houston, but I think a change of scenery is definitely best for him. He also complements Booker very well. Very much like a slasher, will get into the paint. Like I said, he'll dunk on your head if you're not careful. And then you have Booker, who's very cerebral and just calculated with his approach. So I think those two can feed off each other really well. But if it doesn't happen this year, I think the alarms are going to start to go off, because not only do you have to worry about his age, yes, he's technically in his prime, but what's going to happen 3 years from now, as you pointed out too, he's going to be owed almost $70 million. And that's going to eat up, if I'm not mistaken, probably 30 to 35% of your cap alone just for one player. And so, I get the move. You want the franchise guy to stay, and he's shown a love to Phoenix that's someone that covers the team I really appreciate, because I don't think you see a lot in sports anymore, someone that is committed to one franchise for their entire career. But at some point, you have to win. And Booker needs to win. He's a player that has sacrificed a lot. His first 5 or 6 years were terrible. And then he goes to the finals and he goes to the playoffs, and he shows that he really does elevate his game in the playoffs. But is this team going to work for him 2-3 years from now? I can't say I'm certain. We haven't seen them play together yet. The vibes are good from what I'm hearing, but still, vibes and actual on-court production are two totally different things here.
So the thing is, though, when you look at the lineup that you guys are going to be putting out there in Phoenix, the one thing that sticks out is the point guard position, where you're having Devin Booker play a position that I don't know he's best suited for. A lot of people have said that, and you talked about the way he plays, or when he's best suited for playing, plays more, should be more in an off-ball point of view, but it's something that the team really hasn't addressed now in 2 seasons. Now is the point guard position. Is this a concern to you? Because again, maximizing Devin Booker, especially as he gets more older, you obviously don't want to put too much wear and tear on him. Plus, also the fact that he gets more expensive, and the value to the team becomes more evident on that. Where do you find that happy medium on trying to find someone that can facilitate an offense, run the offense, and be able to take care of all the necessary components on that, and it doesn't have to be from Devin Booker?
Well, they tried that last year with Tyus Jones, and Tyus is a good player, but the biggest issue with him was defense, and not that he was a bad defender, but that he was just too small, and that forces everybody to kind of have to guard a little bit more, because Tyus Jones is, they say he's 6 foot, he's 6'1", he's not. And I'm not saying that to be mean. He's just not. Like, I'm 5'9". He's maybe an inch or two taller than me, and that's no knock on him, but that's hard when when you're a point guard and you're getting constantly exploited on that end. And regardless of how good of a playmaker he was, I mean, he came in and everybody was like, including myself, I was saying, like, his efficiency is great. Assist to turnover ratio is one of the best in the league. You had him and Monte Morris, but they're both undersized. But also, I think that the NBA is going away from your traditional point guard of bringing the ball up the floor and just one guy to facilitate the offense. And Booker has shown like serious potential, and he's actually been really good from what the numbers say in terms of efficiency, usage rate, and just the assist numbers too when he has the ball. But as you alluded to, Gerald, it limits his effectiveness as a scorer. But having someone like Jalen Green come in someone that is also kind of a scorer, but someone that also handles a lot in the pick and roll. Again, he is such a dynamic athlete that you have to worry about, okay, if do I have to go over versus under the screen because he can still shoot the ball, right? And
Mhm.
so I don't think that they're going to have an exact set position. From what I've heard, they're making Jalen Green the point guard, and I say that kind of loosely, like that's the spot that they're going to slide him into. But I could very much see it being where Jalen Green, is the one facilitating the offense for a few possessions, and then Booker, and then they just kind of rotate it. But yeah, I mean, it's also, I think the offenses the past few years haven't really done a good job of getting Booker involved at all off the ball when he doesn't have the ball. Like, he's kind of been standing in the corner, he's been standing on the wing, and yeah, he'll cut to the basket, but like, if you're a coach and you see someone that is that good coming off a pen down or a floppy set or whatever else, that why not exploit that mismatch that he has on so many people? And so I think a lot of it has just come from coaching, and that they've seen how good he is as a point guard and they've used him there, but it really does limit what he can do scoring wise. But luckily you have someone like Jalen Green coming in that is huge. Like, that's pretty big, because you have someone that defenses have to pay attention to. And he's big enough to where he's not going to get disrespected on the defensive end, to where, you either have to move him to the bench or you have to bench him because of that mismatch. So it's it's a very tough question that I don't know if I specifically have the answer to, because they haven't gone out and signed anybody that can really be a point guard. And the point guards that they've had in the last few years have been relatively undersized. So they might just sort of do, a 1A, 1B thing. Here, Jalen, you handle the ball. Here, Book, you handle the ball. And then I think they'll just kind of see, how it goes from there. And I think they'll decide that.
One thing I want to ask you before we get into some of the final questions on as far as your team that you cover, where you think the Lakers are, and then obviously a chance to go ahead and promote your great work on Clutch Points. I wanted to go ahead and ask, Kaman Malawash, you talk about him being drafted, I believe, number 10, or was it number
Yep.
11?
Yep. Number 10.
Number 10. And then announcing within minutes just before or just after the trade for Mark Williams. I don't know if Phoenix is the new tunnel for Charlotte Centers, but it's just want to know if it seems like it.
That's what I've been thinking for the last couple of years or so, honestly.
Exactly. Like Lakers players to go to Washington, and Miami players go to LA and whatnot. So that being said, though, all kidding aside, they are similar players, Mark Williams and Kaman Malawash. And I was just curious why the decision process was made on within minutes getting a 7-footer that could dominate on the defensive end and be a rim running, just a great addition, or at least somebody that could alleviate a lot of things and help Devin Booker and the Phoenix Suns in many ways. But limiting that as far as his time on the floor, because you have another young 7-footer that's a defensive rim, or can be in theory defensive rim specialist, that also is a rim running. It seems like a duplication of efforts that may prevent one or the other, from allowing to reach their full potential. Your thoughts on that? If Mark Williams stays healthy, which again the Lakers obviously had buyer's remorse and thought, well, maybe he won't stay healthy for the long term, or whatever the reasoning may be, or just the fact that they thought they spent too much on it, whatever people want to say about that Knicks trade on that. Your thoughts on Mark Williams and Kamala Malawach? I mean, having two great 7-footers that play similar styles is great, but I don't know if it's really the best for both of their developments long term to be able to maximize both their skills.
I think this is the $1 million question. And this was one that I certainly asked after the trade, because I'm like, you get Malawach and then you get Mark Williams. Like you get a guy that is almost the same player, but
Yeah.
a lot of people forget that Kamal Malawach has not been playing basketball very long. He's only been
Mhm.
playing, I think, professionally, I want to say like for 4 or 5 years. Like he has not
Mhm.
been playing for a very long time. And that's crazy because he was one of the best players in the country at his position as a freshman.
Mhm.
And so there's so much raw talent there. Obviously, like he has the size, he has the wingspan, he has the agility. Um, but again, I think a lot of this goes back to, can Mark Williams stay healthy? I think you make the trade because you didn't need that second round pick initially. I think there were other guys the Suns wanted to target in the draft that they didn't need to use the 32nd pick on, because that pick ultimately was Liam McNeely, who ended up getting
Mhm.
traded to Charlotte in that whole deal. But you draft Rasheer Fleming and then you draft Kobe Brea way later, and so I think with that trade, you get someone that is a starter. Like you have your starting center figured out. So I think that was a big part of why they did it. Yes, is he injury prone? Yeah, but also you have to look at Jordan Ott. He was really the guy that had that double big lineup with the Cavs be so successful with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen. And like he knows how to maximize the best out of centers. But yeah, I mean it is interesting because they are both the same players, but Williams is a little bit more ahead in terms of development than Malawach is. I think Malawach
Mhm.
obviously has a higher ceiling. I think he could really be one of the best centers in the league in the next 5 years if everything goes right for him. But
Mhm.
in terms of right now, because like the Suns still want to compete, that's a no brainer. You have Devin Booker on your team, you're automatically going to try and compete to win and to get a spot into the playoffs. And so Williams is also, I think he's 22 or 23 years old. He's still relatively young. And this might be another case, sort of like it was for Jalen Green, where you need a fresh start. I think if you're the Suns, you didn't have anything to lose in the trade. You know, the Lakers, I think what was the initial trade? It was you guys traded, was it two?
Well, it was a number one, and essentially a number one, and also as well Dalton Connect.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure the Dalton Connect part was what they were adverse to, is the number one. I think, but again, that's what I think of. Ultimately, they decided to go ahead and say, you know what, we want to probably utilize that number one somewhere else. But I think that ultimately what they thought on, as far as the buyer's remorse type deal, as far as that's concerned. I mean, they can say all they want about the health issues and how he failed a physical and whatnot. I mean, you found it does seem a little bit suspicious, and anybody that's not a Lakers fan saying ha ha ha, you know what, you're probably right. It does not uh, look good as far as how the Lakers handled that and whatnot. But it's just something where Mark Williams, if he stays healthy, the more longer he stays out there for the Phoenix Suns, the more that it looks like the Lakers had a case of buyer's remorse.
Yeah. But I just say that because a couple months before the draft, this like at the trade deadline, Martin Williams went from being a player that you had to give up a number one pick for. I mean, a lot of teams were interested in him, to where if
Mm,
you only have to give up a second round pick, done. You have
yeah.
a young center that, if I mean, and Phoenix does have a history of players that have been historically injured. You look at a guy like Grant Hill, right? A guy that came to Phoenix and was able to play really well towards the end of his career. And like health and sports medicine has definitely changed over the last 10, 15 years. But I mean, I think it was a great chance for them just to say, you know what, if it works, awesome. If it doesn't, it is what it is. But no matter
Well,
what,
I will
they
say though, but I will say,
yeah,
my apologies for interrupting. I will say
no,
though
no, you're
that
good.
um, that Charlotte has now well, traded Mark Williams twice within a matter of months. So it's some reason why Charlotte probably wanted to get rid of him also. So
Oh yeah,
whether it's
most definitely.
his attitude there or his health or something said that that Charlotte wanted to get rid of him also. So it doesn't look good on the Lakers side. It doesn't look good on Charlotte's side. It just Mark Williams has to, like you said, if he's going to be given the starting spot, has to definitively show that he's a starting center in the NBA, so he can prove that to the league, but also show up, the Lakers, and also show up the Charlotte Hornets for for their the way they both teams dealt with this with of course Mark Williams.
Yeah, and he's in a great situation to do that too. I mean, obviously, Malawach is going to be the name that everybody's going to have their eyes on, even us in the media. Like, I'm sure we're probably going to be thinking at some point, it might be a matter of time before Malawach gets the start. But also, Oso Ighodaro, he played fantastic in the summer league, and he just looks a lot more confident. He looks a lot more comfortable, especially with the ball handle. And there were glimpses last year where you saw how smart of a defender he was. I mean, when he was at Marquette, Shaka Smart raved about
Yeah.
he's such a great help side defender, weak side defender as a big, which you don't really hear a lot of, from a big that can, that can rotate well, that can step out on the perimeter. I remember there was a game against the Cleveland Cavs where he played 44 minutes and he really held his own. So Mark Williams is going to have a lot of competition at that spot. And I think for the Suns, it's going to be a great test to see what he's made of. Is he going to rise to the occasion? Is he going to, show why it was that Charlotte selected him in the NBA draft years ago? Why he was a standout at Kentucky? Or is this going to be a case of, we like the Suns try to make, they try to make a move for him, see if it works, and it doesn't. The beauty of Phoenix is that they have multiple players that could start in his spot. So I don't necessarily think that they're worried. I think if he's able to start for them, cool. If not, they have two other guys that have shown that they're more than capable of doing so.
Yes. Well, you got Oso, you've got Nick Richards to
That's
say
right. Yeah,
the
exactly. And Nick Richards basically started for a
yeah.
good chunk of the games after he was traded. I remember he got traded and then he joined the team in Detroit. And he had like a 20 and 10 double and even I was like, dang, like that's actually kind of impressive considering you were in Charlotte, flew to Detroit, and you picked up the system like that. Thank you for bringing that up, Gerald, because that's another name that Mark Williams will have to compete with.
Like I said, Charlotte's funneling the feeder system for centers
Yes, they
to
are.
Phoenix. But before we head on out, it's a question that I ask all my guests, except for one, which is Oklahoma City, because they really can't say this without saying, you know what? Well, we already are at the mountaintop. If everything goes right for the Phoenix Suns, if everything goes right for the Phoenix, all works out well health wise. Devin Booker, has another great season. You're able to overcome the fact you don't have a pure point guard right now leading the team, and the fact that you Jalen Green and Booker hit on all cylinders as a backcourt that needs to be one of the most fearsome in the NBA. If everything works out well, the center rotation, Dylan Brooks is not mad at the world and actually focuses on being able to be a really solid forward for you guys. Everything works out well. Where do you see your season ending up?
If everything goes right, I see a playoff spot. How far they'll get, I don't know, because the Western Conference is as jammed packed as ever. Maybe my entire life. Like, I mean, heck, you had the 2 and the 7 seeds last year. It's funny, I say last year, but last season was separated by 3 or 4 games. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, Golden State had 48 wins and Houston had 52, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And Houston was a 2 and Golden State was a 7. A lot of other years, you win 48 games, you're a 4 seed, you're a 5 seed. Sometimes you're a 3 seed. And that just goes to show how competitive things are. But some of the teams like Golden State, they're getting older. With the exception of Luka Doncic, like the Lakers are a bit older just because they have LeBron. And some of these other teams, I mean, even Houston got older because of Kevin Durant. And so this could be a prime opportunity for the Suns to sort of squeak into the playoffs. And sometimes, like, hard work beats talent when talent fails to beat hard work. And I saw a lot last year. I'll reference guys like Oso and Ryan Dunn again because they were workhorses and they were like the two players that Devin Booker, I think, talked about the most in such a positive way because he's like, yeah, they're rookies, but they get after it. They're hustling, like they're diving for loose balls. They're trying to match up with the best player, with the best offensive player, and like that type of motor and enthusiasm, that stuff can really carry into the playoffs. But again, sometimes talent does win, and a lot of times talent wins. And there are plenty of teams that are way more talented than Phoenix is right now. But I think if everything goes right, I think that they're able to squeak into the playoffs, whether if it's through a play-in spot or if they're able to secure that 7 or 8 seed. And then I think that alone would be a good win for them in the season, just because it will show to people, hey, you know what? Like, this team is really young, some inexperienced players, but they still got to this point in a tightly contested Western Conference. And who knows? I mean, it might entice more free agents to land in the Valley of the Sun.
We'll see what happens. But I do appreciate your time and consideration in talking in detail about the Suns. But before we head on out, I do ask about your thoughts on those other purple guys down a little bit west from you in the Los Angeles Lakers. Your thoughts on the Lakers? Of course, everybody talks about the skinny Luka that's going to be heading into training camp. LeBron, age 41 year. DeAndre Ayton, who won't be hating like he's on the Suns. He's got to play nice because he's in order for him to get paid upcoming next summer. Your thoughts on the Lakers and how they will compete along with the Suns in this tough Western Conference?
I mean, I think for starters, they'll obviously be better than Phoenix. Like, I don't think that's up for debate. JJ Redick definitely impressed me as a first year head coach. I didn't think he was going to sustain success for this long, and especially when the Lakers got Luka. I mean, they were actually one of the best defensive teams in the league for about a 3 or 4 week stretch, which I was really impressed by, and I think a lot of other people were too. Just because you look at Luka and you generally think, oh, he's a generational offensive player, but he's a step slow on defense. But JJ Redick and the entire, Lakers coaching staff made the defense work with him and LeBron out there. But I think if the Lakers are to really succeed, LeBron needs to get out of his way. And LeBron is still a great player, but like Luka can lead the league in scoring and assists. Like, he easily could. And he has the capability to do so. I actually think like Luka's really like in his prime physically. And for LeBron, I mean, I think if he wants a chance at winning another championship, I think the best case scenario is for him to kind of get out of Luka's way and let Luka be the one to run the show. Because we've seen what happens when Luka is the guy to run the show. They go to the finals. Dallas went to the finals 2 years ago, and they surprised a lot of people, but people within the team were like, we're not really surprised because this is what he's capable of. JJ Redick has obviously put him in great positions, but I would like to see Luka be used more off ball because you do have LeBron facilitating. And in my mind, he's still one of the best facilitators in the league. No matter how old he is, that dude is just 10 steps ahead of everybody else on the floor when it comes to processing the game. But, if LeBron gets out of Luka's way in terms of scoring and just lets Luka do his thing, I think they'll be really good there. I do think, though, DeAndre Ayton is going to be the big X factor. He's going to be the guy to where he could possibly make or break their season. And I do get a little bit worried sometimes if the hard coaching from JJ Redick is going to get to him. JJ has not been afraid to be like, hey, this player has to play better, or this player has to play better, or calling out players to the media, which I'm not personally a fan of, just because I think it kind of sets a bad precedent. But, some guys love that. Some guys, revel in that. Is DeAndre Ayton one of those guys? I don't know. But it will be very important for that entire coaching staff and for those players on the team to get the best out of him. obviously money talks. That's a big thing you alluded to earlier, that he will get a pretty big payday if he performs really well. But I think at this point, I think he should play for pride. I think it's just about, you know, proving to himself that he still belongs in the NBA because he has all the physical tools. He has the ability physically to be one of the best centers to ever play. But the big question's up here. The big question is the motor. And when you have a championship standard, and he has been to the finals before, and he was actually, in my mind, he was one of the big reasons that the Suns even got to the finals in the first place. Like his defense was really, really good. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But will the Lakers win 50 games? I don't know. I definitely think it was a little bit of a shock last season, especially, with the Luka trade and everything. But it's JJ's second year, another year for LeBron, first full year for Luka in the purple and gold. You bring in some key pieces. Will they have the depth? That's always the $1 million question with Los Angeles. They have a lot of stars, but if they have the depth around them, they can make some noise. Anything can happen in this Western Conference, I think.
Awesome conversation. Once again, it is Hayden Cilley. Please go ahead and check out his work today, which he will tell you about here in a second. So last but certainly not least, it's what I call the cheap plug. Want you to go ahead and make sure you tell everyone out there how to follow you, how to get a hold of you, and also as well, to make sure that they check out all the great work that you're putting out there on the Suns and the NBA.
I appreciate it, Gerald. So my Twitter handle, or X, however people want to say it now, it's just at Hayden Cilley, HaydenCilley, and it's all one name, which is super nice. If you go in my bio, I actually have my author profile in there, so you could just click on that, and it will actually take you through all my stories. I cover, the Suns, NBA. I also covered the WNBA with the Phoenix Mercury, who are actually in the playoffs right now as of recording this. So that's where a lot of my time has been. If I'm not doing Sun stuff, if the Suns aren't in season, it's me doing WNBA and vice versa. And then I actually recently just made a professional, I say it loosely, professional Instagram account. It's just at Cilley, so Cilley reports. And it's literally just clips of me, from post game. Sometimes I'll have digital interviews I'll record on my phone, and then I'll do the whole audio waveform and yada yada yada. And so I've made that about, I'd say, a month and a half ago or so. That's a public account. If you guys want to reach me, my DMs are always open. Just please don't send anything hateful. I've gotten that a lot this past W season. So, if you do have any basketball related questions, feel free to shoot me a DM, and I'd be more than happy to answer.
As someone who has been the bane of some people's existence when it comes to the Lakers, with my opinions as well, I know of as where you speak, and I'll just leave it at that. But once again, it is Hayden Cilley. Please go ahead and support him with good comments, by the way. Just be positive here. Please go ahead and support him by go ahead and following him on social media, and also as well on Clutch Points and his great work there as well. Well, Hayden, it's been a fantastic conversation. I would hope if you have available time during the course of the season that we revisit our conversation to see how things are doing as we check in with the Suns once again. But cannot thank you enough for stopping by on the show here today.
Yeah, of course. And like you said, I would love to hop back on at some point in the season, and maybe my predictions will have come true, and maybe they won't. But I think we'll see until we do another one of these episodes.
Absolutely, we'll find out, and of course, well, you and I will also be, find out because of the stuff that we'll get back as far as the comments to make sure. But once again, it is Hayden Cilley. Please go ahead and support him today on Clutch Points and social media as well. Well, Hayden, it's been great having you on. Looking forward to bringing you back on once again for another great conversation right here on the Lakers Fast Break Podcast.